Sarah Gadsby, CEO for River Valley Services. Mindmap has connected with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and the Department of Children and Services to support quick and early access for individuals who are experiencing early onset of psychosis. It's interesting. Earlier on, I wanted to be in psychology. So really, I went to school. My undergrad was for psychology. Got my first job, and I really have always kind of gravitated to the underdog, which is really what pulled me into social work. My first job was working with it was a nonprofit organization, but it was definitely a for-profit. It was a residential, and it was very affluent individuals that would go there. And sometimes when the money ran out, the placement also ran out, and I really struggled with that. So I ended up going really into more of a government field, which is ensuring working with most vulnerable populations in order, to support them. So River Valley Services, with the local mental health authority for Region 2. So we service Middlesex County, Lyme, and Old Lyme. So we actually have services also down in Old Lyme. But we work a lot of the individuals that we serve are in the Middletown area and some of the small surrounding towns. When under Mobile Crisis was able to expand some of their services, and my predecessor actually approached the mayor and talked about the possibility of putting a clinician in with their police department. I ended up coming into the role shortly after that. It was, as you can imagine, initially there was some challenges for the clinician. The police, it's a different role than what the police were doing, which is very much safety first. But I think after time and after getting a better understanding of how it can support individuals, it was very much a supported program. So much so that we were able to put in a second shift clinician. So we were able to provide both, and it supports, like I was saying earlier, family members or friends who may experience a family member really struggling, and they're not too sure, what to do. So whether it's, calling an ambulance or calling the police department, it's usually first responders that ended up interfacing with somebody who's struggling with maybe the initial stages of a first psychosis. Prodromal signs that maybe there's a higher likelihood of agitation. And our clinicians, are able to recognize symptoms of psychosis and then really support whether they need a higher level of care, or what they would do is work with the family members to give them additional resources to support their loved one if it didn't require. But I think it also helps with the police department is that it's providing ongoing education about mental health in general and really what that looks like on a day-to-day level. And so it supports not, and if somebody was acting out, it may be that they got charged with a breach of peace and they had to do promise to appear, when really what the individual needs is that behavior isn't criminalized. It's really, this is an individual that needs support and treatment. So that's been, it's been a nice balance of really trying to support individuals get care. In addition, it's not unusual that they get called. Substance abuse is another time there's a lot of calls for police response. And again, these are individuals that they may be self-medicating. So it's really, again, trying to get people into the care that they need. We collaborate on so many different levels. So we also have clinicians that are embedded in the court system. And so sometimes if if somebody's arrested that we know may be struggling with other mental health issues, they'll let the jail diversion clinician know that this might be somebody that, if the lawyers agree, may benefit from treatment, and will encourage treatment as part of the conditions of when they're at court. So that there's many different systems that interface with each other, really to support again someone getting care. Um, we the chief and I have been with on different meetings with the chamber. They may be concerned from a business perspective that there's increase in homelessness, and so we have individuals from River Valley Services on the mayor's task force to end homelessness. We will work with the different nonprofits, in addition with our CIT clinicians to when we go out to when we go out to these sites, it's an opportunity. Again, if somebody wants treatment, we're able to support and get them into care. So um, there's many different things that we do with the police department. It takes a village. So even when we're meeting with business districts, now these are individuals that really do not know much about mental health at all. And we have been able to offer educational forums through the chamber for business districts that want to learn more about mental health in general. Again, I think it's really targeting individuals that don't interface so much with the mental health systems, to try to give a better understanding of mental illness. And truth be told, anytime I do one of these like trainings, there's always somebody that has a family member that is struggling, whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD. There's just a whole host, and it's really just trying to normalize, these mental health conditions. Everybody at some point in time in their life struggles with depression. Anxiety actually can be a good thing. Anxiety sometimes promotes us to move forward with a task. A student, for example, that got a deadline, it's the anxiety that pushes them to complete that task. It's when it becomes debilitating and then it stops them from living their daily life, is when there needs to be some type of intervention. But none of us are immune for experiencing, some type of mental health issue at some point in time in our lives. With this collaboration between Department of Mental Health and Addictions and Mindmap, it's creating an avenue to get people into care quickly. That isn't always the case. I think even today, if somebody calls to try to get a therapist, they could be on wait lists and not able to access care for months. Or some people are just not taking clients at the time. So it's it's a really good collaboration to support early intervention, which can be life-changing for somebody with a psychotic thought process. Untreated psychosis, and not with everybody. Some people are able to live, with voices and thought disturbances, but it can, the other thing that comes along are the negative symptoms that we don't talk about that really impact their ability for the things that you and I would take for granted, the socialization piece, people don't have to have all those negative impacts in their life. A young adult with early intervention won't need to have to drop out of school. They won't need to lose a lot of their friends, or they get put back 7 years and feel like, well, no, I've got all this, I've got to make up all of this time because I didn't have the same developmental process as my peers. And unfortunately, that can be debilitating. People lose, like, when you don't when when you don't understand what's going on, their peers, will have concerns that they may be thinking differently, talking differently, and it impacts family relationships, friendships. It's very, very isolating, and it doesn't need to be. And that they can have fully light just like you and I. It's just giving them the tools in order to be able to do so. And then that talks to the stigma, right? And the need for education and awareness that um, treatment works and people get better. Psychosis is one of the symptoms that of schizophrenia. So, and what you're looking at is um, it could be a prodromal symptom of it could be several different types of illness. It could be bipolar disorder with psychotic thought process. It could be somebody use the wrong substances and that they're experiencing some types of psychosis. But left untreated, yes, it could progress to schizophrenia. But I think it's important to say you can still have schizophrenia and lead a productive life. That there is that. So it just is again, is looking at the symptoms and how it impacts the individual. But schizophrenia doesn't mean that that you can't have a fulfilling life. You absolutely can. And there's many examples of people once treated having a very good life. It just makes it early intervention can just make it so much more easier on the individual, that they don't have to go through a lot of the losses that somebody may go through as they're on this projection towards long-lasting psychosis. A lot of times when somebody's struggling with a mental health condition, self-medicating becomes part of that. And what you'll find is, especially with the younger generation right now, the use of cannabis. And that in itself can have significant implications for the developing brain. There's more and more research that's coming out that shows the correlation between high levels of THC and psychosis. And time will tell. There'll be additional research that will come out, but there's more research that indicates that maybe there is a link. But I think, again, it's the general population is like, well, there's nothing wrong with cannabis, right? It's medically used. It has medicinal qualities. It's better than alcohol. But when it comes to the developing brain, there's lots of concerns about using cannabis. But it's not unusual because it helps decrease anxiety in that moment. And when somebody's having a thought disorder, or their anxiety, of course, is pretty significantly higher than your average person because they're not fully aware of what's going on, and or not wanting to disclose what's going on, and because there's shame. And what does that mean? I'm hearing a voice. Does it mean I'm mentally ill? They don't want anybody to know that.